Good morning, Terp fans, and a happy Saturday. Today it's the last home game of the football season. Basketball's going hot and heavy. We already had a little debate here. What do we start with? Traditionally, we start with football. I want to keep it that way. The Wisdom of College Park, what do you want to talk about?
I want to talk about last night's, I would say, a bit of a disaster of a basketball game.
How can it be a disaster if you win?
They looked very like nobody knew their role. Unlike Georgetown, I thought that this team really had it going, and this was the game where you look at them and you're going to say that they're going to win by 30.
Oh, that Maryland's going to win by 30?
Yeah.
Okay. I can see what you're saying there because I went to the game with you, but I still want to talk about football first. So why don't we hold on to that basketball thought for the second half of the show. We'll pick it up there with what happened last night, although Maryland did win. And when you're number 3 and you win, it's always good. Today at noon on BTN, Maryland hosts Indiana. Indiana 4-6 had a great game against Michigan. They lose 48-41 in double overtime. We watched most of the end of that, middle to the end of the game. Several times it looked like Indiana won the game. Michigan comes back, steals it away from them. My takeaways from Indiana, Michigan, first of all, were you surprised there were that many seats open at Indiana?
Yeah, I was thinking Big Ten school, big game, especially against Michigan because we saw it here. Michigan fans, they travel very well. But to see that, and it was the same when they played Ohio State, who at that point was the top-ranked team.
You mean Indiana?
Yeah.
They didn't sell out completely for it?
They have empty seats.
I don't know what's up with that. It looked more empty seats than you would see at Maryland. Indiana with Jake Sudfeld at quarterback, and they have a huge running back, Justin Howard, who's moving up the Indiana all-time rushing leaders. Do you like the Indiana offense?
Yeah, for them, it looks somewhat like a Big 12 team with the offense and not a lot of defense.
You don't like those big – by the way, it's not Jake. It's Nate Sudfeld, by the way. My mistake. You don't like this Big 12 all offense. What do you say? Defense is –
optional.
In the Big
12, defense just not a very popular thing. But for Indiana today, we're seeing a team that has seen every team that they played in the Big Ten play score over 28 points.
Right. They gave up 34 to Ohio State. Gave up 29 to Penn State, 55 to Michigan State, 35 Iowa, 48 Michigan. They don't stop a lot of people. What you and your numbers, their rank, what's their defensive rank?
Their defensive rank is the 17th worst defense by points per game in America right now.
So that'd make them 111th out of 128.
Yep, and Rutgers is ranked worse than them for next week.
All right, but on the offensive side, Indiana brings the firepower. Can Maryland stop it? That's a big tailback they have there. Can Maryland stop the guy?
Yeah, well, we've seen Maryland play, I'm not going to say similar in size, but similar in skill running backs this year. Saquon Barkley, Ezekiel Elliott, not many of them ran the ball very well against Maryland. Maryland, as I've said before, is that team that says, we're not going to let you run the ball over us. You can throw it, but we're not going to go down by getting the ball ran all over us.
All right, so Jordan Howard has 1,200 yards, 9 touchdowns. He averages 6.2 yards a carry. Nate Sudfeld, about 2,500 yards passing, 6 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Now, Maryland, as the offensive powerhouse that they are, could throw 5 interceptions in one game. So our weakness, and obviously everybody's talked about who follows Maryland football, we can't throw the ball. I was proud, and you're not supposed to be all proud when your team loses, but, man, Maryland stuck it to Michigan State defensively. Maryland's defense stuck it to them for a while. The Michigan State had the ball on the plus side of the 50 time and time again. They couldn't score the game 7-7, and then the wheels fall off near halftime. So if you look at Maryland as a team that has about half a team right now, because they do play defense, offense not so much, or half a team stuck with Michigan State for a half. Your takeaways from was a 24-7 loss. I almost stopped keeping score. We got to 17-7. We just weren't coming back.
I saw it as disappointing, but as we saw as a start when Maryland played Wisconsin, these teams are going to stop Perry Hills from running the ball, and then Maryland has nothing. It showed against Michigan State. But the punting was horrible. If you're going to get stopped, you got to be able to punt the ball, and Maryland just can't punt the ball. Well,
Nate Pritchard, who's been the punter, had 2 shots out. He had 2 shanks. And then here's your quiz of the week. Who came in for Pritchard? Do you remember the fellow's name?
No, it wasn't Nicholas Rabinowitz. It was.
That's who I thought it was, but it wasn't. I do have it here. Lee Schrader comes in, a 6'1" redshirt freshman. He was a little bit. He kicked the ball in the right direction, didn't go very far. That's the place where if Craddock was still on the team. Well, he's on the team. He has a broken wrist, pins in his wrist. He will not play today. Greens gets to be the place kicker. But Craddock was backing up Pritchard, so when Pritchard had a couple of bad punts during the season, you saw Craddock come in and become the punter. Yeah, that hurt us, but even if you had Ray Guy punting for Maryland, I don't think we're going to win the game. When you have Perry Hills, the interception he threw for the touchdown, that was as slow a changeup. Ask Freddie what kind of pitch that was. But boy, had nothing on that throw. I've seen the kid throw before. I think he's beat up. I think if you run the ball that many times, he takes shots to the open field. I think he's just beaten up, and nobody wants to say, oh, he's got bumps and bruises and he really can't drive on those throws. Caleb Rowe doesn't have those excuses. Caleb Rowe throws wonderful passes to the other team. He hits guys who are open. I'll give him that. But I'm not here to rip anybody. We have quarterback issues, and that extends even to Gage Schaefer. If you go to the game, you see a tall kid, number 14, on the sidelines, and we walk back towards the car after one of the games with Gage Schaefer's in front of us with his family. I don't know what he did, but he got himself suspended from the football team for the rest of this year. Not that he was going to play, and I don't think they should have burned his red shirt. But it takes me back to when we had Sean Petty at quarterback a couple of years ago, and you look at what we have now and go, well, with the group we have now, you could actually give Sean Petty some run. He's not that much better or worse than what's on the field for us. Okay, I don't have enough with this game in 1 minute. Maryland, despite 2-8, hosting 4-6 Indiana, is favored in the game. Do you buy it? Where's your Ron Jaworski, your 75 hours of film this morning? Does that guy buy Maryland being a favorite?
I've definitely seen Indiana play a lot of football this year, and I do believe that Maryland truly does have a chance to beat the Indiana Hoosiers today. But a favorite, no.
No. Okay, well, I don't bet. You're too young to bet. I'm not sure what the line is. Bruce is away from the camera this morning, but I know Maryland's favorite. Okay, but if you're going to gamble on what Maryland's going to do, right now the topic to talk about isn't on the field. It's in the front office, the head office for Maryland, including Damon Evans, Kevin Anderson, Kevin Plank, and everybody's making a decision about who the next coach is going to be. Mason, I keep hearing 2 names. One of them you've seen on film for real, Frank Reich, who is, you know where he is now.
Yeah, he's with the San Diego Chargers right now. An offense that gets 405 yards and can't win a game.
They have more injuries than anybody else. They have more injuries. The Redskins have led the league in games missed. I think the Chargers have overtaken them. The other fellow on the list and this list seems to be getting shorter, but this is all rumor. I saw Kevin Anderson last night. I didn't talk to him about this because he probably would have not said anything anyhow. Pep Hamilton's on the list.
The Colts, they had a good offense, but then they made the mistake of making T.Y. Hilton the one wide receiver when a guy like T.Y. Hilton, your big deep threat's more of a slot guy. I think that Pep Hamilton did run that offense right. He did run Andrew Luck right, but it just didn't work out this year.
Well, this is the Freddie line on this, is that the management in Indianapolis went out and got a bunch of old guys. When they tried to win right now, they probably made some mistakes. Pep Hamilton's one of the fall guys. But the offensive line, boy, Andrew Luck, speaking of guys who got beat up, oh my goodness, he got beat up. He's on the sidelines for them. Who's the starter now?
Matt Hasselbeck will be starting the next 3 or 4 games for
Right.
the Colts.
All right. So one of the reasons that I think Maryland's going to look for a fellow who does not have a job right now is I keep hearing about this 11/29 deadline. 11/29 is the Sunday after the football season ends. And I don't know if it's just talk. It's possible we have nothing else to talk about on the football side other than who the punter is going to be today. But other names that we keep hearing but seem to be fading is Justin Fuente, he's the head coach at Memphis. Tom Herman, apparently he's got a contract extension from Houston for a lot of money. They don't want to let him go. Matt Campbell, who is really high on my list. I haven't heard anything about Matt Campbell. Have you?
Well, I got a chance before the Maryland game to watch Bowling Green play Toledo, and Matt Campbell definitely has himself an offense in the MAC. But it was an interesting way that you're not really hearing about him. But I think that he's right up there with Fuentes and Todd Herman as the same MAC or.
Mm-hmm. Well, how about my guy? I saw. Thank you for getting me the DVR on that one. I saw some of Dino Babers. The offense not as prolific as it has been. They sort of ran out of steam there. But those are two guys. I really like what Babers has done because he's been in small schools and he keeps winning. He might have gotten a little bit of a late start at 52 years old. I was really impressed with Bowling Green in person. They couldn't score down the stretch against Toledo. The fact that we're talking on TerpTalk, a major metro market, the Baltimore, D.C. area, about Bowling Green and Toledo being an interesting game should show you that they're doing something right over there. And no, I don't know if it would really work at Maryland. Maryland, everybody says unique situation. They don't fill up the stands with Maryland fans. But I was there when Maryland was good a couple times. I've seen Claiborne coach teams. I've seen Bobby Ross coach teams. I've seen Friedgen. And when Maryland wins, even though it's not a 100,000-seat stadium, there's 50,000 Maryland fans in the seats. But you got to win. Think any of these guys can do that? You think we got a guy who can actually pull this off?
Dino Babers is a very interesting situation because the first thing that they said at the beginning of that game was Dino Babers has taken on Art Briles' offense. And in the Big Ten, we like to say run the ball and play defense league. I'm not sure how much running tight end screens all over the place and throwing the ball deep and scoring 49 points is really going to work.
First of all, now that you're a Big Ten guy, because we used to be ACC guys, as everybody who's watching this used to be, now that you're a Big Ten guy and you want to do ground and pound, you just don't think that anybody who runs around crazy throws the ball. You classic Big 12, I call it the mouse, what's his name? The guy came up with the Mouse Davis, the run and shoot look, is never going to actually win anything. But that theory actually comes from you. Why is that? Why do you think that?
You have to play defense. When an SEC team walks on the field, they're going to be as fast as you and as mean as you, and they're going to get inside your small guys, and they're just going to beat all those screen plays. So you got to play defense to win championship. Defense wins championships.
And with that, and once again, I've been outshone by here's your hat. The Wizard, you just put it up at one Wizard of College Park for Freddie and Todd. Here's our hat for today. You don't actually have to wear it today. All right. So as we look down this list of schools, other schools, then we'll get over to basketball, who are looking for coaches. South Carolina, still open. USC, you think Clay Helton's going to get that job?
I think they looked up since the firing of Steve Sarkisian, and yeah, I do think that he will get that job.
And since we're gonna do our college whip right now, you think you got, who is it, USC and Oregon is one of your whip games?
Yeah, that's my bet of the day is USC. Give them 4 points against Oregon. I don't see Vernon Adams and this Oregon team really beating Cody Kessler and USC. I think USC wins the shootout out in Oregon.
Okay. Mizzou, the job's open. Miami's open. I have on my list UVA will be open at the end. Said there just aren't as many compelling college games today. They've got Navy at Tulsa. It's only big because Navy's around here. 8-1 Navy at 5-5 Tulsa. It's at 7 o'clock. That's on the CBS Sports Network. And of course, I think Navy's going to win that game. You have who else, Jeff?
Well, there are some big games.
Just give me Ohio State. What do you think about Ohio State and Michigan State? And then we'll go talk about basketball.
I think Ohio State's going to win this game. Ohio State's just really got it. Ezekiel Elliott's really going. JT Barrett's running that offense the right way. I just see Ohio State winning it, not by the 14 points that they're expected to, but I think Ohio State pulls this one out.
Okay, I'll go with that. By the way, today's edition of TerpTalk Game Day is brought to you by Viener Consulting and by Meyer Consulting Engineers. This is Wayne Viener. This is Intern Mason. Bruce is away from the camera this morning. Basketball, last night, Xfinity Center. Say Maryland came out flat. It's impossible to argue with you. We talked about it on the postgame show last night that it looked like a hangover, but really, this is 2 games in a row where Maryland came out and did Zippo. They were down 9-0 to Georgetown. They got down last night to Rider. Rider now 0-3. Georgetown beat Wisconsin last night, so I guess Georgetown got themselves going again. It was a sellout. According to Roman Stubbs, the Washington Post, last night's game was a sellout. Not everybody showed up, but Maryland is selling tickets. I'm going to ask a couple players and see what your takeaway is. And I'm going to preface this by saying Maryland had 8 assists last night, which drives Maryland fans crazy. Who do you pick as an actual point guard between Melo and Rashid Suleiman?
I'm still taking Melo. I think Melo runs the point very well. I think Suleiman's better if you get him out on the wings shooting. But
you pointed out several times last night that they have Melo playing the 2, and it didn't seem to be, in your mind, it wasn't working.
I think it was a good idea to try that, but Melo is better he has the ball with a chance to drive straight off. I think that they're going to stick with Melo at the 1.
All right, so last night Melo gets 5 assists, only 1 turnover. That's not bad. Layman, 4 turnovers. To me, even though he played 32 minutes, Jake Layman looks lost out there. Does it look as bad to you?
Jake Layman last night, it was the Georgetown game's first half. It's going to continue, but late in the game, he did make some shots, made 2 free throws that closed it out. But a bad game for Jake Layman.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Somebody's got all the skills. It just isn't working for him. I will go big lineup versus small lineup, but I'm going to go first on this one. The small lineup, which means Carter's at center, Layman's at the 4, and you find 3 guards between Jalen Brantley, who will eventually start to play, Suleiman, everybody else, Nickens. That's the lineup that I think you have to have on the floor to win, because that's the game of college basketball today, is not putting 2 bigs down there and pounding the ball in the post. It's getting it spread out. Once you get it spread out, get some air in this offense, get up and down the court a couple times, then you can bring in your bigs as your off-pace move. Do you think we should start big or start small?
I think they should start small. You're right. That's the way that this game's played. That's the way that, even though we hate them, that's the way that Duke and Carolina, they've won.
Boo!
And I think that Diamond Stone looked very good with the 4-guard look. But Robert Carter, as you were constantly saying throughout the night, if he can shoot the 3, Maryland will win.
And shoot the 3. If you make the defense cover him 20 feet from the basket, it means you can't just sit down there when there's a low post presence, because Maryland hasn't figured out how to get the ball into the middle and quickly reverse the ball the other side. When the ball goes into the post, you can't drive because the ball and the defense are sitting right in the lane, so there's no place to go. You have to get their center out of the way so your Suleiman, and especially Melo, who is the best tailback Maryland has on the roster in any sport, can come flying down that middle and get fouled. Now, one of these times he's actually going to get hurt flying down the middle, even though he looks like Mighty Mouse. That's a pounding that you don't want your number 1 superstar to take. But it works for Maryland, and that's when the offense picked up, and that's when the crowd got back into it. You were saying that for half of the game, there might as well have been nobody there.
Yeah, really quiet half, but Maryland was losing at the half, so I sort of get that one. But when the students are there are fans there. They were loud. It was a really interesting game because it was rioter to see everybody we want to win this game.
Yeah.
But nobody was booing. That's a good thing. But this team, the crowd, they fed off the crowd in the second half.
Okay, fair enough. All those kids that come out to the game, and I call them kids, most of them have no historical perspective on what's going on. They're just coming out to see their team play. But for those of us who were there when Maryland was great, and you could see that it's there, we're not exactly clicking yet, but I actually think it's there to be done. Just because we had a couple rough outings, I don't think Maryland's going to win every game, but there is some superstar talent on that court. It's almost time for the Sports Maven. And for those watching online, they're going to catch this later. The Sports Maven is at 9 o'clock on 1300 CBS Sports Radio out of Baltimore, and we will have a podcast of the Sports Maven up later today. So the big Terp weekend ends with, we're going to do the trifecta. Last night we were at Xfinity Center. Today we're going to be at Byrd Stadium. Tomorrow night, what do we have?
Well, we have the Maryland soccer team taking on an opponent that we've all seen, the University of Virginia at Ludwig Field in some NCAA tournament action.
I love playing Virginia in soccer. The crew gives them holy hell. You excited for it?
I'm excited. I have seen this team a decent amount this year. Sort of a slump mid-season, but here we go. It's time. College Cup. Last year, very much disappointment and a loss to UMBC.
But that was a heck of a lot of fun, even though we lost.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's the name of the goalie?
Cody Niedermeyer. And, wow, he made 3 or 4 big penalty saves in the win over Indiana in the Big Ten semifinal. And this team, I believe, can beat Virginia and advance into the College Cup.
If Jaworski was going to – no, I won't make you do that. On Sunday, we switched off the NFL and watched the end of Maryland-Ohio State. Maryland takes that 2-0. Sasha Swarovski on the court last night. He held up the Big Ten championship trophy 2 years in a row. If you have time and you're tired of watching football, come out and see Maryland tomorrow night. Ludwig Field, NCAA tournament game. And with that, let's go Terps. Let's win the weekend for once. Get all 3 of them done. This is Wayne Viener for Intern Mason and Bruce Posner, who's away from the camera today. You've been watching TerpTalk Game Day, brought to you by Viener Consulting and Meyer Consulting Engineers. We will be back next Saturday to talk Maryland Rutgers and see what happens to the Terps basketball team as they travel to Cancun in the, I can't remember the name of the tournament.
The Cancun tip-off?
Cancun tip-off. Good enough. Thanks for watching, and go Terps.